mature.
Red Faction 2 is a first-person shooter developed by Volition Incorporated and released on the 6th of June 2003 for the original Xbox. The plot of the game takes place 5 years after the events of the original Red Faction game. You take control of Alias, the protagonist of Red Faction 2. The newly formed Red Faction must work together and destroy Sopot and his evil regime from using nanotechnology which was discovered on Mars in the original Red Faction game. And that more or less sums up the plot of Red Faction 2 without giving too much away. The single player campaign mode is competently made and it features the excellent voice acting talent of Lance Henriksen and Jason Statham. The single player mode isn't very long and it will take you around about 6 to 8 hours to complete in total, but during that time you would have engaged in many epic set pieces, battled through many varied locations and fighting many of Sopot's goons to the excellent thumping techno soundtrack. For anybody who hasn't played the original Red Faction game, you will find Red Faction 2 an enjoyable romp through the single player mode, but if you have played the original Red Faction, you will find Red Faction 2's single player campaign mode very disappointing. While Red Faction 2 is still an excellent action game, it is fair to say that in comparison to the original Red Faction released in 2001 for both PC and PlayStation 2, it is a disappointing sequel in some areas. One of the biggest disappointments for me when I first played Red Faction 2 was the downgrade in the Geomod technology. The Geomod technology was a much lauded feature in the original Red Faction, and quite rightly so because you could destroy the majority of the game and landscape to how you desire. For example, if you take one of the multiplayer maps from the first Red Faction and compare it to the destruction that you can perform in the second Red Faction, you can see that it's been scaled back. Ironically, the developers have stated in a making of documentary of Red Faction 2 that they actually improved on the Geomod technology from the first game, even though it is much more scripted and scaled back in the second game.
In designing the sequel to Red Faction, one of the best-selling and critically acclaimed releases of 2001, the team at Volition was determined to create an even more immersive experience for the hardcore action fan. They started by improving on the revolutionary Gmod Engine which they had pioneered for Red Faction, literally blowing away the static environment concept of competing first-person shooter games. Geomod technology allows the player to alter and destroy the game world in real time.
Red Faction 2 is using an enhanced version of the Gmod Engine that we featured in Red Faction 1. We've made it faster, it's more stable now, and I think it reflects the new philosophy in design that we've taken. We wanted to increase the number of ways and the number of solutions a player could approach any situation with. And we did so just by making everything that we could think of destructible. We incorporate both real-time and scripted destruction, both arbitrary and positionally determined, to really just make it feel like you can blow apart absolutely everything in the world. And I think that's what players really enjoy doing.
Admittedly, it doesn't make Red Faction 2 a really bad game, it just means that the destruction and the level design is much more linear and uninspired in comparison to the dark, destructive atmosphere of Mars in the first Red Faction game. Apart from the downgrade in the Geomod technology, the single player campaign mode, although not a must play, it is still a great blast for a good couple of hours before mediocrity starts to set in. There are some hilariously bad dialogue sequences where NPCs would just simply run in line of fire and just get blown to smithereens. The single player campaign also boasts multiple different endings depending on how well you perform in the single player mode. For example, if you kill the majority of NPCs, civilians, or don't complete certain objectives throughout the single player mode, then you will get the bad ending. Obviously, if you perform really well throughout the single player mode, you will get the better gaming ending. While the majority of gamers out there will enjoy the single player campaign mode, and quite rightly so because it is very entertaining, the multiplayer mode is where the game's main meat is at. The game runs in a silky smooth 60 frames per second in a 4-player split screen mode. The multiplayer mode is further enhanced with the option of having customizable bots in each match, and also you have the choice of up to 60 maps in the multiplayer mode, which means if you love your multiplayer games, then Red Faction 2 is going to keep you very busy. Each and every one of the 60 player maps varies in size and design, so if you enjoy arena based shooters or like tight dark corridors, then you are bound to find a favourite amongst the 60 player maps. In today's market, you might have a hard time trying to track down a copy of Red Faction 2. The game has dramatically seen a rise in demand over the past couple of years. Prices haven't really been affected by this, but you'll find that the majority of gamers out there will only find a copy on eBay or on Amazon. Try not to pay more than £6 to £8 for it. I got my copy for only £4 and it was in immaculate condition. Overall, Red Faction 2 is a disappointing sequel, but it is still a great game to play. The dark dreary atmosphere of Mars from Red Faction 1 has been replaced with uninspired generic settings of Earth in the second game. Although the game is still entertaining and has some great scripted set pieces, the main draw of Red Faction 2 is the multiplayer option. The 4-player split screen mode is amazing with a couple of mates, and the sheer amount of content on offer for the multiplayer options is fantastic, and it will keep you busy for a very long time. So if you love split screen gaming for first person shooters, then this is the game to get. You will not be disappointed.
Enough of this! I command you to surrender!